A very pleasant evening to all the attendees, respected faculty members, dear research scholars and students who have joined us today. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this international workshop on women's studies organized by the Department of English and Other Foreign Languages, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram campus, Chennai. Uh, Today we are broadcasting a live webinar on women in fairy tales and fiction, and we have with us today Ms. Sana Munir, author, reviewer, copywriter, and storyteller from Pakistan, a renowned and knowledgeable resource person who is going to deliver what we are sure is an enlightening lecture. So please stay tuned. Before we move on to the welcome address, I would like to gently remind all the attendees who have joined us today to please stay with us till the end of the session to access the feedback, and please don't forget to post your queries, if any, in the live chat stream on YouTube during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. I would now like to call upon Dr. Rama, Professor and Head, Department of English and Other Foreign Languages, to deliver the welcome address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Walter. Good evening, friends. On behalf of the Department of English and Other Foreign Languages, SRM Institute of Science and Technology, Ramapuram campus, I extend a hearty welcome to all the attendees and my colleagues to this international workshop on women in fairy tales and fiction. There is no doubt that fairy tales make interesting reading and women make intriguing reading. Today, this fascination and interesting facts meet in our webinar, and it is to be delivered by none other than the renowned author, Ms. Sana Munir from Pakistan. A woman of varied interests and a feminist herself, she has been a great contributor to women's literature. We are fortunate to have a popular personality like her in our midst today. Ma'am, I heartily welcome you and thank you for your kind consent. And at this juncture, I would like to invite my colleague Mythili to take over the forum and give her introductory remarks. Over to you, Mythili.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. It's both a privilege and an honor to introduce our speaker, Ms. Sana Munir. She's a multifaceted personality. She's an author, essayist, book reviewer, and storyteller. And she's the author of the book titled Unfettered Wings, Extraordinary Stories of Ordinary Women, a collection of short stories published in 2018 that tells stories of women. And her work aims at representation, diversity, and acceptance. She believes feminism enables a person to rid of their gendered lenses. Unfettered Wings has been nominated for Best Fiction in English at the Valley of Words Literary Festival at Dehradun, India. The book was also prescribed for MPhil students of English literature at a privately run university in Lahore, ComSats, in February 2019. This book has also been picked as Book of the Month by Indian film actor Sonali Bendre for her book club during her fight with cancer. Ms. Sana Munir has been recently named among the top 6 Pakistani authors by Mashable Pakistan on International Women's Day 2020 for her book Unfettered Wings. The book has also received 5-star reviews with Indian newspapers such as the Deccan Chronicle, News Now, Business Standard, and Outlook magazine, and was selected among the top books by EANS, that is an Indo-Asian news service, and The Quint. The book has got a 5-star review from Dawn, the News International Daily Time, and Book Review, and the International Literary Journal has printed a 5-star review in its South Asian chapter for winter 2018. And I'm also happy to note that she was a panelist at the Karachi Literature Festival 2019 and was also a part of the Islamabad Literature Festival 2019, where she spoke about the future of feminist writings in Pakistan. She has spoken about short film fiction at Supil, a circle of stories, and at the online book bakers festival, and has represented Pakistan at a panel about authors getting published in India. She has been the chairperson at an international online symposium, University of Delhi in May 2020, and has also held a workshop on the history of literature of partition 1947 for the students at the University of Bengaluru. Currently, Ms. Sana is working on another collection of short stories, as well as writing a weekly feature and photo essay in the News International, which is Pakistan's largest circulated English language newspaper. Her most popular column series chronicles women of the Mohal Harem and can be read online as well. Ms. Sana is associated with the paper's weekly magazine TNS and continues chronicling Lahore's history in the Shahar pages and writes about women's issues and books. She delivers lectures at Lahore College for Women University very often for the creative writing course module. She has a master's degree in mass media research and analysis, and she has won 2 gold medals with distinction for her MA. She has earlier taught feminist film theory, research methodology, and international communication at Lahore College for Women, Lahore, as an honorary lecturer. Ms. Sana Munir is a polyglot and she speaks English, Hausa, Punjabi, and Urdu. And I'm very, very happy to have you on our session, ma'am. And can't wait to listen to you talk. And I hand over the session to you, ma'am.
Well, thank you very much for the very kind and very detailed introduction. I don't really have anything else to say about myself. You've spoken more than I would have. I'll just jump straight to the topic. Good evening, students and all the listeners. I'm very glad to be here. I hope that you can benefit a little from what I'd like to discuss with you people. I'm not going to lecture you about anything because I believe that college students, university students are pretty much capable of seeing things from their own perspective. What a teacher or a lecturer or a one-time teacher such as myself, because I'm going to speak to you once only, what I can tell you is just give you a direction. You might like it, you might not like it, you might agree upon it or not upon it. But I would suggest that if a new perspective, if a fresh way of looking at things is being offered to you, or you just come across it, for once try to go with it. And if it makes you uncomfortable, of course, you can always retrace your steps. But it's always good to have a fresh perspective on things that we have been associated with since our childhood and since forever. And we have grown accustomed to them, we have grown used to them. And they seem so harmless to us that they actually feel very useful to us at times, but they might be damaging narratives. Of the topic of women in fairy tales and fiction, I'd like to just describe the topic a little, the keywords in the topic, and then we can go ahead with the discussion and keep going from there. Okay, the first keyword I would like to discuss is fairy tales. I mean, we are all familiar with them. We have grown up with them. We have been reading them since our childhood. Now that I have children, I read them out. I read them out to them. I read out to them, read those stories out to them, and I also discuss them with my children. We have been watching films that have been based on fairy tales, and we like them very much. There's Beauty and the Beast, there's Cinderella, there's Frozen. So there are so many stories, and there's so many women characters that are out there which have been part of our lives for longer than we remember. I mean, they've been always there on TV, in our books, in the cartoon stickers on our school bags, even the lunch boxes, even the merchandise, it's always there. So princesses and women from fairy tales have always been and still are part of our lives. But we have been looking at them from a very limited perspective, and that's what we are going to discuss today. Then the second thing is also it's very important to mention here before I jump on to the other segment of the talk, is that when fairy tales were written originally by, the most famous ones are by Brothers Grimm or Grimm Brothers or the Aesop fables, they were written as folklores. They were written as, they had very dark themes. They were quite tilted towards the genre of horror fiction. They were quite, they had a gothic touch to them, and they were quite scary. There was a lot of magic and paranormal, stuff going on in those stories. But since these stories, when they were taken up for adaptations, even in the form of illustrated books or in the form of animated films, of course they were watered down. All the horrific or the horror elements had to be taken out, and what the people or the publishers who printed these illustrated books, or those filmmakers such as Disney who made the first animated film Snow White, what they did with these stories was they added sugar to it. That's my way of talking. That's how I feel they did. They added sugar, but I think they added a little too much. Anyway, it's the sugar that is addictive. It's the sugar that pulls us back to them. It's the sugar in the fairy tales that makes us go back to them again and again and love them and try, we just make them part of our lives because maybe, that sort of sprinkling, that sort of sweetness adds something or adds meanings to our lives. But how superficial that is something that we are going to be discussing today. The second keyword in today's lecture, the topic that I have today, is fiction. So what is fiction? I mean, I'm not going to go ahead and talk about all kinds of fiction in all over the world. That's going to be, a tad bit difficult, of course, in this talk, in this discussion. So since it's a broad term, I'm just going to narrow it down a little, and I'm going to talk about those generally, in a very general way. I'm going to talk about fiction which represents women as the protagonist. And why I'm doing that? Because it's very doable, since, in fairy tales that I'm talking about, especially those which have been adapted for films and those which are very popular as illustrated books for children, they usually have the woman as the protagonist. Cinderella, the Sleeping Beauty, there is Rapunzel, there is, Elsa and Anna from Frozen, you name it. So they're usually women who are the heroes, or, if that is the word that can be used for them. And then even in fiction, so as a comparison, we are going to discuss those books in general who take up women as the protagonists. There's going to be a comparison, and then you can see where we are getting at. While I'm on that topic about fiction, about women, I must stress upon here that I never like to use the term women's fiction or women's literature. I mean, what is women's literature and what is men's literature? Why do we have to differentiate that? Why do we have to create a disparity at all? I mean, why is it different? Is it so different if a woman is a hero in a book? If a book is titled by the name of a woman, is it so different? If the narrative totally focuses on a woman instead of a man, if a woman is the hero in a way, is a hero of the story, and she's not inclined towards any romantic interest, if there is no man in her life, is not that going to be a good story? So I just believe that instead of calling it women's literature or women's fiction, we always, at least I like to use the word, the genre that, telling stories of women. Those books that tell a story of a woman. That's suitable for me. That's something that I'm very comfortable with, instead of creating a gender disparity in literature, that this is about women, this is about men. I mean, then, the point is lost. If you're going to differentiate between genders in literature, and you're going to differentiate between genres, that means that men who find it very hard to understand women, of course, they're never going to, understand women at all, with due respect to all the men who are listening to me right now. So I'm going to jump onto the first module of this talk, and that is, when we talk about fairy tales, what's the first thing that comes to my mind? I'd like someone to please, if the students are here and they're interested, I'd like to see 2 or 3 messages from students. What's the first thing that comes to their mind when they hear the word fairy tale, or when they hear the word princess? I'd like to see 2 or 3 words on the screen. If that's possible, it's fine. Otherwise, I'm going to continue with the lecture or the talk anyway. So the first thing that I want to talk about is, in these fairy tales, is the princess personality syndrome. Now, what's a princess personality? I mean, we have so many princesses to talk about. There are so many heroes in these films, in the fairy tales that we have learned to read. We have grown up reading them. We have watched them on TV. We, just like I said, that they're part of our household every single day. Especially if you have a girl child in your house, you're going to have merchandise of all kinds of princesses. That's for sure, because that is how we have been stereotyped to believe they're princesses. And we have also gone ahead to call our children or our daughters, we call them princess like that, because we feel that is something going to be special. Okay, I've got one comment and that says a dreamy world. Oh, that's so cute. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah, they're beautiful. Of course. Yeah. They're nice. Okay, I think I got two. That's good enough. So, damsel in distress. I like this person. I like this person. I mean, I like all of you. Of course, thank you very much for coming in for the comments. But yes, that's the thing. That's the thing. And that's what we're going to discuss. I'm so happy to see this message. I'm so glad. Okay, so the princess personality syndrome. What is that syndrome? I think that is something that it's a casket, or it's a casing that has been designed by filmmakers or by those people who want to sell, their books or sell their movies, by making a princess or a woman the focus of a story, and yet make her vulnerable, make her weak. For example, first of all, is there any princess you can name, or is there any princess that is not alone in her life? I mean, she has no family. Usually her parents die. Even if she has parents, they are and they're very cruel to her. I mean, that is also something that I'm not very fond of, that, stepmother always has to be a cruel one. There's no stepfather in these stories. There's always a stepmother, and she's the cruel one. She's the witch. So woman eats woman is a narrative that is very popular in these fairy tales. Even in Hansel and Gretel, there is a boy and a girl, but they don't go to a wizard's house. They go to a witch's house. In Arthur, I watched Arthur. It's not a Disney film, but I don't think it's a Disney film. But I watched Arthur it was one of my favorite films when I was a child. And he has Merlin. He has a wizard in his life, and he's so cool. He was my favorite character. I used to watch that film again and again because of Merlin, because he was so funny and he was so cool and he was so learned. At the same time, he knew so much, and yet he was, so down to earth. You could just connect with him immediately. So Merlin is cool because he's a wizard, but the witch in Hansel and Gretel, the witch in Snow White, the queen, the stepmother, they are all going to be cruel. That's one thing that I have some reservations about this. I have strong issues with that. They don't have siblings. They don't have siblings. If Cinderella has siblings, they have to be stepsisters. If Anna has Elsa, they can't get along with each other. They love each other, but they can't get along with each other. They don't have friends. They don't have friends. Since they are alone, usually, they don't have any social life of their own. Hence, they only make friends with animals. They make friends with inanimate objects. They make friends with pets. They make friends with dwarves. And that's all how their life is going to be defined. They are alone, and they are vulnerable, and they're available to the first person that jumps into their life. Second, they have no education. They have no profession. Okay, fine. I mean, I understand that a princess lives in a castle. I understand that we have to see how beautifully her family or filial relationships are explored in a story, whether on TV or on screen. I love it that I get to see her emotional journey. I love it that I get to see her bonding with inanimate objects and the causes that she cares for, whether they be animals or for, she has a yearning for spirituality, or she has a yearning for domesticity, and she bakes amazing cakes, or she serves 7 dwarves and she washes their clothes, and she has lots of skills and lots of talents. But how difficult is it to ever show a princess in an animated movie or in an illustrated book sitting with a book? Other than beauty, I mean, beauty is walking on the road, and she's fond of books. I mean, that's good. But what is she reading other than novels? I mean, what is her education? Does she have a degree? And does she have a teacher? Does she know what geography is? I mean, all the princesses, let's not talk about beauty only. I mean, how difficult is it to just show her for once at a study desk with a teacher, maybe, or with a pen in her hand, or writing something? I mean, how difficult is that? Why do we always have to see Cinderella making a pie when she's singing? Why do we always have to see a superpower? Why do we have to see magic? I mean, magic is fine, but how about something, something that a child can connect to? as well? How about some sort of a realism? How about some sort of agency to the giving some agency to the character? So to overcome this shortcoming of not showing us the education or the profession or the kind of mental aptitude of the character, what they do is they give her a superpower. You can build ice castles if you're Elsa, or you can just go to sleep by pricking your finger on a thing on I don't know, splinter or something in the hay, or you can spin gold out of straw. So the magical things that a woman can do in fairy tales, but that is how you if you're a mermaid, you can be turned into a human, and then you go into the water, and then you can become a mermaid again. And that also because you are the one who has to change for the man, and not vice versa. It's not the man who can become a mermaid to live with you in the sea because he doesn't love you enough. Of course, he has his occupation. He's the prince. He has to rule over his country, and he has to take you to the palace, and you are the one who's going to go to the palace. And that's where you have to give up who you are, your identity, and then you go to live with him in the palace. So that's normalizing the imbalance of relationships in social constructs, imbalance of relationships in reality. The other thing about the princess personality syndrome is about the happily ever after. The happily ever after is when she has found her true love, because that is the ultimate goal of a woman's life. I mean, what else could she desire for? Is there nothing else in her life? I mean, could you just for once, just give her some agency, could you just give her some ambition of her own? The only thing that I have seen, the only movie that or book I have read that is related to fairy tales is the recent Frozen Part 2. They gave two sisters. They gave us two sisters, Anna, who's the romantic kind, and then there's Elsa, who's she's the ambitious kind, or maybe she's more of a soul searcher. She's like trying to search herself. She wants self-actualization. She wants to have some esteem of her own. She's not interested in ruling over a country. She knows she has responsibility, but then she really doesn't want to stay tied to a castle. And it's her superpower that has become her weakness. So she's also alone, and her parents die, and she can't bond with her sister. She has no friends whatsoever. She's antisocial. Okay, fine. I mean, that's all right. But I don't see her ever holding a book or anything. So it's okay. That's okay. I mean, that's how stereotypical princesses are. So since they are also part of the princess personality syndrome, so I can accept that as well, because I have no other way to I don't really know how to escape this except for acceptance. But the good thing about Elsa was that in the second part of the film, she was the one who was, she was just floated out to the maker. I mean, sort of her maker or her spiritual calling, and she was very happy with her life. It was Anna who gets to rule the country. I think that is something that was different. That is something that I appreciate. I like that sort of an ending, but there should be some difference. Even in Mulan, I mean, most of you must have watched Mulan. I really like that, but even that ending, I couldn't really enjoy that. Because there was a love interest, although it was a folklore, it was a folk story, it was a true story, and they had to twist it and put a romantic angle to it, which was, I don't appreciate that a lot. I think that we have to see things for what they are sometimes, and not just, be spoon-fed by the narratives that are being given to us and just swallow them. We can't really do that all the time, especially when they can affect the way we see things, the way we see relationships, the way we see genders, the way we see stereotypes, and then we start to accept them the way they are because they have been fed to us through different mediums, especially from childhood. That's how you introduce gender role association to children at a very young age. And it can also be undone if you're aware of these things. If you're capable of discussing these things off of your children, then these things can be reversed as well. It's just a medium. The film is going to be on TV for an hour or 2 or 3. The book is going to be there, read 1 bedtime story, 2 bedtime stories, twice a night. I mean, for 2 nights or 3 nights, you're going to read 1 bedtime story to your child, and then it's going to be gone. But then, that's the point of it, that when parents start reading with children, they can at least explain to them the alternatives, an alternative view of things, a different perspective. You can keep discussing and relating. You don't really have to allow the child, or even we don't really have to allow ourselves to just get, get into the flow and accept the way things that appear on the silver screen or things that appear on an illustrated, beautifully illustrated book. We need to think originally sometimes. I have got some quotes from some research papers that I included in a dissertation that I wrote some years ago. I'd like to share them with you. Walt Disney was quoted by David Punsley in 1987. In 1987, I like 80s because I was born in that decade, so it's sort of special. Haha, I'm joking. Anyway, Walt Disney was saying, Walt Disney was quoted, girls bored me, and they still do. Okay, it's not a girl's fault or 10 girls' fault that Walt Disney has been bored by them. It's because he has a stereotypical image of a woman or a girl in his mind, and that is what is reflected in the films that come out of his company. I mean, if girls bore you, so make them interesting on screen, right? Maybe, you know, you don't like the kind of women that you have met, so maybe just recreate something from out of your imagination, or do you have to dumb them down even more on screen? Why does that have to happen? I find that very ironic and very funny. Jane Shrev, she's a research writer, she's a feminist, and she had written in 2003 in a research paper again, despite everything, despite the color, despite the magic, despite the romance, despite the awesomeness of love and the flowers, the songs, the characters, the beauty, the magical realism, all those things are there in Disney. But despite all of that, the Disney movies have got women all wrong. There is another quote by Solomon. A profile of the female stereotype gathered from a host of sources may be summarized by the following. I like this quote a lot. Number one, so this is the profile of a female stereotype, which has been gathered by Solomon. She is young. She's young. She's beautiful. She is usually found in the home, especially in the bathroom or the kitchen. She is relatively helpless and requires a male authority to solve her problems and give her advice. Now, giving advice is something that has jumped way beyond from the domestic spheres or the social spheres or the professional spheres. I think it has also gone into the internet. You know, I could just put up a picture of myself and I'm going to get, comments of all kinds. About my makeup, about my hair, about my clothes, about my voice, about my talking, about my accent, about my, the language I'm talking in. So they're going to be advising me, telling me how I should improve on it, how I should do this and how I should do that. It's not just me. It's every single woman I know. It's like, since it's accepted that women are there to take advice, or they are there to be protected, or they need protection from one thing or the other. It's just because they are online, or it's just because if they are making themselves heard or making themselves seen in a public sphere, in a public space, which is virtual, which is still virtual, but still it's public, it's open to all. It means that someone can suddenly become protective about you. Someone can suddenly become possessive about you. Someone can suddenly own you. It's not like that. Even if you're a public figure, even if someone is a public figure, if they're actresses, they're models, they're princesses in their own, they're princes in their own way. No one owns them. No one gets to tell them what to do. But then free advice is something I think that people of the subcontinent, we excel in. Same here, same there. I know that. I have friends over there. I keep hearing the stories. Continuing with the quotation, the primary function of a stereotypical woman in her life is only to nurture and care for the man. Have you ever been to a toy store? The quotation ends. I've finished that. I'm not going to discuss more on that. I think I already have. But the question is, have you been to a toy store to buy toys for your younger brothers, sisters, nephew, nieces, cousins or something? Do you see or spot a stark difference between the girls' toys and the boys' toys? Do you think that's something girls and boys prefer to buy when they are 1-year-old or 2-year-old? Do girls need pink blocks and do boys need blue blocks? It's just blocks. It's just cubes of plastic or wood. It can be of any color. They should be multicolored. I think it would be easier for mothers to teach them the colors while they're playing. Give me the blue block. Give me the red block. Let's put them together. Which color is this? That's cool. Why do we have to differentiate the genders based on colors? Why do we have to dress up princesses in shades and put them in carriages woven out of pumpkins? And why does a fairy godmother appear suddenly? And why is there a very dangerous evil Aunt Ursula? Why are always women eating up other women for dinner in fairy tales? Why are stepmothers cruel to Cinderella? Why is the stepmother cruel to Snow White? Why is it always a man who comes to wake her up? Why is it always that the first sight that a man lays on a girl who's fainted because of a spell or something and she's put to sleep for years has to be woken up by a man because he likes her? I mean, did you ask her, does she like him? A princess has to like the prince as well. And why is it always a prince? And what is he doing in the jungle in the first place on a horse? Anyway, that's like that's like the storyline. I'm not going to go into that. But even in bookstores, the same thing. It's the same thing in toy stores. At least now that it wasn't this common when I was a child, but now that I'm a mother, I can see and spot, and my heart weeps when I go to a toy store and I see all the items of a dowry, complete dowry, available for girls in miniature form. There are miniature washing machines in which you can, put at least one t-shirt, and then you turn on a button which is, battery run, and suddenly it starts whirring, as if, the t-shirt is getting washed, and it's pink. Why is it not blue? Do men don't they need to learn how to wash clothes or run a washing machine? There's an ice cream maker. There's a roti maker. There's an oven that that has lights blinking on and off, and you have a fake plastic chicken that you put inside, and it's pink. The stove or the oven, it's pink. And then you go to the boys section and there's engineering stuff, all the cool stuff, all the cool toys, the building blocks and the the action figures and all those interesting things. They all go to the because they don't need to learn about domesticity, and they don't relate to that. And women, the girls who are 1 year old to 10-year-old, I mean, they need toys, and suddenly they need washing machines and ovens to learn from at such a tender age. So this is a gender disparity. This is the gender role association that we create from a very early age. It's not like that it's not the demand. I mean, it's not like children know from their birth which kind of toys they're going to need. It's just like they have different tastes in food. Would we differentiate between food while we are feeding infants or babies? Do we do that? So why do we have to make choices for them? It's all, I think it's very interconnected. I feel that. There's another quotation by Molly Haskell. Now, I've often heard this. I'm going to go for the quote later, but I need to discuss this here. And that is that I often hear people, when I'm discussing this, some people have this reservation that it's just a film. It's just a film. It's on screen. It's gone. It's not reality. I don't have to, just connect with that princess. Of course, I'm not a princess. Of course, I'm not going to think that these things are real. But that's very naive. I think that's a very, very naive way to look at narratives and discourses that are constantly part of our lives for generations. It's not a one-time thing. It's not a one-time thing that's going to come and go. I mean, for argument's sake, Marshall McLuhan, father of modern mass communication theories, he's the person who divided different mediums or different media into hot and cold groups. Cold, those mediums or those media which he listed under cold, they were those which have a very, very small effect, very little effect on your psyche, very little effect on your thinking, on your rational behavior, even on the way you look at realistic settings in social constructs. But those things which he listed under hot, books and films both are under that hot list. Books are a hot medium, and so is film. And why is that? It's because the level of commitment the audience has when they are committed to a literary discourse, when they are reading a book, you're completely lost in that with all your senses. When a child is reading a book, when you're showing them the pictures, I mean, the child or a person, when we are reading illustrated books, we are using our imagination as well as our sight to imagine a thing almost spring up to reality on a page. If a writer is telling us that there were roses and they smelled sweetly, we can actually smell the roses. Or even if men are attending here, if I say biryani, you can't smell biryani. Yeah. If I'm going to show you, if I want to show something as a writer to my reader, I'm just going to write about it, not paint a picture. I'm just going to use words. But that scene just springs up in front of your eyes as if you're living there, as if you can see it with your own eyes. So doesn't that make books a hot medium? Same goes with films. Films are a hot medium because they involve a very strong commitment. You have to sit there without commercials, without, usually in cinemas, there's no light, there's no other sound. The sound is so loud, you can't even hear the person sitting next to you. And so you're engrossed, all senses involved. And then if you enjoy a film and you just say, "Yaar, gaane bade," I mean, I like the songs, I like the heroine, I like the hero, I like that scene. Oh, it was so funny. You always come back with something to discuss with your friends, to type on Twitter, to post on Facebook. It's always something that stays with you. So it might be an idea, it might be a sentence, it could be a whole social construct that you pick up from something that is a hot medium and bring it home with you. And you might carry it with you for longer than you would think you would. And when we are carrying an idea in our heads, when we are accepting a certain kind of a narrative on a screen or in a literary discourse and it's staying with us, where are we going to apply it? Of course, in our social reality, of course, in a real life. So that's how, it's really interconnected. You simply can't just say that film, I just watched it and it's there, it's gone. It's not. Or a book or a discourse that has stayed with me or liked it or I enjoyed it. I don't, it's just gone there. I've forgotten all about it. No, it's part of your subconscious, part of it. Some part of it has stayed with you. And that is how you're going to implement it in your own way. So coming back to Molly Haskell, society reflects film and vice versa. And in doing so, society reflects the ideological and social construction of women who are either to be referred as a symbol of purity or a symbol of evil. But that's also something very interesting. In TV plays, when we watch TV plays, when we watch movies, when we watch or read books, I mean, the heroine, who's very, very desirable, who's amazing, she's beautiful, she's talented, she's skillful, she has so many things to be loved about. She's so pure. Yeah, she's the one that a man is running after, or several are. And then there is the other kind of woman who's totally evil. I mean, I just discussed this when I was discussing the stepmothers or the witches. Yeah, that number one, the woman eat woman thing, and number two, it's always a very black and white thing about women. Women are people. They need to be explored in their gray areas. There can be an element of bad in a heroine. She can be flawed. She can have shortcomings. She can have weaknesses. She can make mistakes. And that is how a writer or a filmmaker or a script writer or whoever is telling the story of a woman on whatever medium, I mean, that is how you can be very constructive in your discourse and in your narration when you're telling a story of a woman. Even if a woman is not the protagonist, even if the woman is a secondary character in a certain narrative, at least tell her story completely. Unless she's just a supporting role. She's just there to sing and dance. She's just there to be won in the end as a prize. I mean, okay, if that's the kind of narrative there is, I can't really talk about that. But if a woman's story is being told, then tell us fully. I mean, that is something that you should aim for. That is something that you should be looking out for as students of literature, especially. If you're studying English literature, you're studying English, and even when you're not going to be studying and going to go out into the practical life, and you're going to be watching films nonetheless, you're going to be watching TV nonetheless, you're going to be reading books nonetheless, fiction, non-fiction, whatever. But try to look for the complete picture. Try to look for the holistic picture of a character. And if there are questions left unanswered, and you have questions, that means the writer or the one who has built a narrative has wronged you somewhere. And then that means that, you can answer some questions yourself or just leave it there, the whole thing. This Freud is someone I admire a lot. I studied psychology throughout college. I have a keen interest, a deep respect for psychoanalytical theories, especially from Freud. So Freud suggests, again, to further this debate or to further this argument, I have a quote from Freud. The psychoanalytical theory of Freud suggests that at least at one level, the spectators allow their unconscious to go along with the scripts and images that match with themselves. How often has it happened to you that you see a girl on screen, or you read about a girl on screen, and you start suddenly connecting with her? Like, yeah, this is something that happened to me. Oh, this is something that I heard about. This is something that I dreamt about. This is something that I heard of. This is something that I wanted to do. Oh, wow. If I were her, I would have done it. If I were her, I would have never done it. Don't we constantly keep arguing with the screen, especially when we are with our friends, because, we need to discuss how we think about what we think about the heroine's decisions, or, whatever she's thinking or whatever she's expressing in the book or on screen. So there's always this relativity, the element of relativity and relationship between audience and the narrative on screen or the narrative on the book. It can never die out. It can never fizzle out. It can never be understated. It's always going to be there. Hence, try to read constructive narratives. Now, about fairy tales, I'm very happy to know that but it's been happening for a while, because I've bought some books for my child, who, like all other children, she's a girl, a 7-year-old, and she likes to read fairy tales just like that. But I was very uncomfortable with her when she started reading books with me, and I had in my collection there was my own book of the storybook, The Ugly Duckling. And I was very happy that she could read out every word of that story, but it was very disturbing for me to listen to that story. It was so disturbing that there is this child who's born and he's shunned because he's black, and his other siblings are gray, and the mother also shuns him. And he's so heartbroken that even when he falls down or when he slips into the water, then no one comes to rescue him, and he has to leave his house just because he's shunned so much, he's psychologically disturbed so much, and he goes from one house to the other, and he's disregarded, he's not respected anywhere, until suddenly one day he realizes that after 1 or 2 years of very tragic experiences, he has become a swan, and he's white, and he's graceful, and he can fly. I find that to be a very disturbing narrative. It's something that made me very sad. But recently there has been some work done about this, and fairy tales are being retold by amazing prize-winning authors. The retelling of The Ugly Duckling is called Duckling. It's been written by Kamila Shamsi. She's a Pakistani author, Britain-based, but I haven't really read it, but I'm sure that the retelling of these stories, there are other stories in this series as well, but I remember this because of Kamila's name. And I think that it's high time that we start not only seeing fairy tales that have been fed to us for all these generations, for all this time, and we have been looking at this true love theory for a very long time now. We seriously need to get out of this. I hope and I wish everyone finds true love in their lives, but it's just like, it's not going to happen because suddenly a prince is going to appear and save your life because you're just dying, and he comes here and he's going to be the center of your universe. Okay, someone helps you, you don't give yourself to them, you someone helps you, you say thank you to them. You try to repay, but not with your own self. That okay, fine, just because you're a prince and you have saved my life, so just take me away. And they literally show the prince taking the princess away in every film. It's, I mean, at least just for diversity's sake, maybe change the ending sometime, make it different. That would be cool, I think. Okay, now coming to the second part of the lecture or the talk, it's going to be a little briefer. I hope I've not bored you already because I can't see anyone right now, so I'm going to carry on. If anyone is bored, please let me know. Guys, Dr. Walter, please let me know, yeah? So the second part is about fiction. Are you going to say something?
There is no, ma'am. You can carry on, ma'am. It's okay. There is
Thank you.
just one comment. I'm just putting it on the screen. There was a comment.
Yeah, I'm going to read it out. With apologies to William Shakespeare, who said in great dramatic flourish and rhetoric in the play Hamlet, "Filthy, thy name is woman." I have to disagree with him after listening to Madam Tsunami. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab. I'm very grateful to listen to this. Thank you so much. It's just made me very happy. I have to come back to normal because I still have the other half of the talk to deliver. So now about the fiction part. The fiction part is, as I've already described, that I'm not going to cover all fiction, which is impossible. This is going to take 2 or 3 college courses for you, and you have excellent, competent teachers to tell you about fiction and how to read it and how to analyze it. See the discourse, read between the lines. There are different ways to analyze the discourse that's been put before you in front of you. And I'm sure most of you must be already capable of doing that. But just as a person who's going to speak to you, for once in her life, I'm again just going to stress. I think I already spoke about this a little in the beginning. Never call it women's literature. Don't call it women's fiction, because we're going to limit the scope of it. If it's for women, if just because a woman is writing it doesn't make it a woman's fiction thing. It's not like, or even if it's a story about a woman that's being told, it doesn't make it women's fiction. Because when we are going to limit something to being women's fiction, it means only women are supposed to read it. So women are going to talk about women, women are going to understand women, women are going to know all those areas which are misunderstood or misrepresented or stereotypical in the mainstream media. So what's the point? I mean, it's cool. It's good that women get to read other women's story and they get a fresher perspective. But what use is a story of a woman, of stoicism, of bravery, or even of tragedy if a man is not? So, I mean, when you're telling stories of women, it's very important that men also read those books, and we don't limit the scope. This is also something I see in bookstores. Women's literature, women's fiction. I mean, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that? Since when and why are you classifying genre on the basis of gender? That's not how it should be. I have seen men who read romance. I have received so many messages from men who have read my book and appreciated it. And a lot of other women, women's books that men read. And it's something that needs to be normalized. Instead of creating a disparity between genders based on the genre of writing, I think this disparity needs to be removed. It needs to be eased out. And we have to do it gradually by changing our perspectives, by talking to the bookshop keeper where we buy our books that, Bhaiya, please change this label. We don't like it. What do you mean by women's fiction? Just say, just rearrange these books into their stacks according to other genre. There's horror. Is there romance? Is there commercial fiction? Just put them over there. What do you mean by women's fiction? Because this creates a segregation and it's very needless. We are already a very segregated kind of a people. Men have privileges which women don't. Men have rights which women don't. In every sphere, domestic, professional, legal, social, virtual. So I think this disparity needs to be addressed. It needs to be seen. The first step of every problem, like, it's a very popular maxim these days, that's the first step of solving a problem is to address the problem itself, to recognize the problem itself, to see that this is a problem and now it needs to be solved. It needs to be removed from my life. And how can you do it? If you can't do it on a larger scale, start from yourself, from your friends, from your small circle, in your house, at the bookshop, in your own library. Things are easy. Things become easy. But if you don't take up a daunting task of changing the world, I mean, that is also going to happen, I'm sure. All of all of you are going to be supermen and superwomen in your practical lives, but let's start from now. When you're writing something and you have a female character in there, when you're reading something, when you're analyzing a script, whether the script is being played on stage, whether the script is being played on TV, or the script is being read out from a book, you need to see that characters have to have some sort of agency or control, especially when telling stories of women. That makes it a little easier to build a constructive narrative. There's 4 ways of giving agency to a character. I'm going to very briefly discuss them. Number 1, it's man against self. Man is interchangeably, in my language, I use man interchangeably for men and women. When I say I'm a man of my words, I never say I'm a woman of my words. I don't say that. It's an idiom. It's applicable to both genders. I don't like to say actress. I would like to say actor. I wouldn't say poetess ever. I would say poet. So just like that, man against self. Sometimes, most of the time, especially when you're teenagers, and I've been through teenage myself. I realize how difficult that phase is. You're always pitched against yourself. You have needs, you have requirements, you have questions. And sometimes, most of the times, it's always a man pitched against himself. You're looking for answers, you're looking for solutions, you're looking for therapy, you're looking for validation from yourself. Yeah. So this is one narrative. This is one way to create a narrative about a woman character or a female character that you pitch. When you pitch her against herself, then that's going to be whatever way it goes. Whatever way it goes, the self wins or the man wins. That depends on the narrative. That depends on the story that you're trying to tell. But that is one way that you can see. The other is man against society. And that's something very easy to understand. That's something that every one of us is going through. That's something that we step out of the house and, it's easy to gauge. It's easy to just experience. Man against society. The society, social norms, social taboos, norms. It's my favorite word to bash, norms. Who made them the norms or the normals? Who normalized them? Everything that's against women, everything that's pitched against women is a norm. It's just a rule. It's a playbook, I think, written by some misogynists. It could be women, could be men. Man against nature. Man against nature, that is when you're talking about tragedies that are beyond your control, or some situations that are beyond your control, like for example, apocalyptic stories, for example. That's nature. That's something that's beyond your control. Or certainly the scientific age, this time has passed and we have had nuclear wars and all the world has gone awry, and what is left is just I don't know, bits of land and weird zombie looking men. So that's one narrative that just suddenly popped into my mind. I don't really want you to write about zombies. You should if you want to, but it's not something that I'm asking you to do. Then there is man against God. That's also very understandable. That is, when a character is fatalistic, portrayed as a fatalist, very fatalistic, and there is fate and destiny and kismet involved, and then there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of tragedies that narratives show. That's also fine. You don't really always have to make a woman character as a survivor. You don't always have to make her as a hero. She doesn't always have to come out, unhurt. You don't always have to put a sword in her hand. Yeah, like it's fine if you're writing realistic fiction. If whatever you want to write, if there is realism in it, then the story can go either way. It can go either way. That's fine. But then again, the story of a woman should come at least full circle. Tell me the whole story. Don't give me the romantic angle only. Don't give me the pitiful angle only. Don't give me the domestic angle only. That she knows how to wash clothes. She knows how to make pies. She knows how to knit. She knows how to, sweep the floors, remove the cobwebs. She can do everything that a domestic woman is supposed to do. But I've already been through the debate, so I'm not going to repeat it. So, just give me the whole story. That's what I think, that when readers are reading books and when writers are writing, young writers like yourself, since you're going to be, beginning to write, or it's going to be part of your course, or whatever. Maybe you're going to write dissertations. Make sure that there's always agency to it. I think that I'm quite done here, Dr. Walter. I think time is up, is it?
It's just 5 minutes to 7, ma'am. Would you like to
so
take
I think
some
1 hour. I've spoken for 1 hour, haven't I?
Yes, almost.
I can't hear you, Dr. Walter.
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
I can, but it's just.
Can you hear me now? I think.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I think I can manage. Yes, please.
If you are okay with
so
it, we can
I'll see
take
the
a few
questions.
comments.
If there are any questions from the audience, are there?
Yes, actually there were a couple of questions. Am I audible,
please, I'd like
ma'am?
to answer them.
Am I audible to you?
You are audible, but I have to stress a lot to listen to you. I have to stress a lot. Could you just put the questions on screen so I can read them?
There were quite a few comments after the questions.
Okay.
I'll just tell you this one question orally, and then we will have questions appearing on the screen. You spoke
All right,
about.
Please tell me the question.
Yes, you spoke about gender roles in society. That is basically how we are supposed to act. How we are supposed to speak or dress or groom ourselves, conduct ourselves in society. How would you challenge the negative gender stereotypes in society? What would be your suggestions to challenge these gender stereotypes which are out there?
Start from yourself. Start with yourself. I started with myself. That's how you go. You start always. Charity begins at home, they say. So you always start at home. If you're a student, if you're a girl or a boy, whatever your gender is, and you feel comfortable with whatever roles, I know it's difficult. It's not easy. It's not easy to challenge the roles or the norms, like I like to bash this word, the norms or the values and the taboos. It's not easy to challenge these things. It's always difficult. But you'll have to. That's how we go forward. It's just because you start with yourself, you need to start fighting, you start, putting up, you can't ask for your rights. This actually makes me very sad talking about this. We can't really ask for rights. Asking from whom? The rights are there. We need to just, get them and grab them. We need to demand for them. We need to just, be strong about it and be firm. And I think it's a journey. It's a process. It begins by convincing those who are around you and those who matter. Those who don't matter, you shouldn't really worry about them. It's simple. I hope that helps. I think it was a very personal question, not a literary question. It's made me a little sad as well. I wish you good luck.
Another similar question was, do you think that breaking down these gender stereotypes, helps us become our best selves?
Becoming your best self is a very subjective thing.
Talking about in today's context, in the modern day context.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm going to be talking about. Being your best self in your context, in your skin, is going to be different from what I think being my best self is in my skin. Being my best self is something that I define for myself. From today's discussion, this is something that you should also take away. That when I say that a woman character inside a literary or screen narrative needs to have agency, I stress that whatever narratives or discourses we are reading or watching or studying, We are going to apply them one way or the other in our real lives, in our social constructs, then that means I'm also saying that you need to have agency in your own life. You need to have some sort of control over your own self, your decisions, your preferences. By challenging the gender stereotypes, yes, you'll have to challenge them. It's not an easy journey. It's not always an easy journey for everyone. I mean, for some lucky people, it might be, but no, for everyone, it's not. And that's fine. That's fine. I mean, that will give you a reason to go on. That will give you a reason to keep fighting. That will give you a reason to be. That means you're not backing off. That means you're going to keep on working for it. And when you achieve it, when you achieve what you want for yourself, make sure you are that kind of a woman who does it for another as well. Don't become the roadblock for another woman. Then that doesn't help. That sort of achievement is not useful. Feminism is not about myself. Until and unless I include other women into what I have achieved. Even if other women have not included you, even if other women have excluded you, you do not have to repeat the same cycle. You don't have to repeat the same circle. Make sure that you include into the folds of your achievement and your success and your self-actualization and self-realization, you include other women as well. And you give them strength. Instead of being the person or the woman who begs strength from another person and has not found it. It's fine. Be that person who gives out, lends out her share of strength to other women. That's also very, very gratifying. I saw a question, but it was removed, Dr. Walter.
Yes, ma'am, it's there now.
That's a very subjective thing. I don't really have statistics to comment on that. If you have statistics, maybe that's true, but then it's all right. It's not a crime. It's something that we need to, just like I said in the beginning of this talk, that my idea is not to lead the students somewhere. I never believe a teacher at this stage can lead students to, to the barn or to the farm or something. The teacher can only give them a direction. The teacher can only give them a perspective, and it's up to them to follow it, to understand it, or to apply it, or to disagree, But before disagreeing, try to look into it, try to research, try to think about it, try to discuss with your friends. I think that's all I want to say about it. No, fairy tales don't interest me because I'm a feminist. Fairy tales interest me because I have grown up watching them. I mean, this is the question by Nitish Gupta, and he said that, why do fairy tales interest you? Is it only because you're a feminist and like to see women as a hero? No, women are already a hero in the fairy tales. By some definitions, they are the hero because the narrative spins around them, only in a very limited and stereotypical way. That's what irks me. I'm interested in fairy tales because I read those books when I was little, and I watched those movies when I was little, and now my children are doing the same. And their narrative has not improved. The narrative is still as damaging as it was when I was a child. And to think that these stories and these movies and these narratives and discourses have been going on for a long time, that's very disturbing for me. So that's what I'm interested in. I actually wrote my master's dissertation about Disney. It gave me 99 marks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Shall we take a few more questions, ma'am? There's one by Ashish Agarwal.
Okay, ma'am, don't you think that rather than questioning the gender roles, always we must also speak against the Medusa complex, which is present in society at present, which leads to pulling leg of each other? Now, see, when I've already spoken about gender disparity. I think I've already spoken about gender disparity, and I'm very clear about it. I think when I talk about literary narratives and I say that gender disparity is not supposed to be there, and we are not supposed to, pick at each other, we have to keep a very harmonious flow of gender roles, then I think this question is already answered there. Disparity is something that is a social construct. Gender roles are social constructs. They have not been, they're not innate all the time. Not all women like to cook. Not all women like to make babies. Not all women like to get married. Not all women want to, learn embroidery and knitting. Not all women like to read books. Not all women like to write. So it's, it's very different. It's very, I think it's very unfair to to assign roles to women. You see, when we just make the man the economic or financial head of a household, for example, then we are putting a lot of responsibility on him as well. When you remove gender roles from a woman, you're also removing gender roles from a man. That means when a woman is working, she's also going to bring revenue into the house. That means that the burden on the man also lessens. So he also has time for hobbies other than going out with his friends. I mean, he needs, men usually need hobbies. I've made this observation. They need, some constructive, good things in their lives. Like in this age of internet, I think a lot of hobbies have been just certainly, sidelined. We don't really care about them. We don't really practice them anymore. But anyway, I hope that answers the question. Yeah, there was Shrek and his wife. So that is something, I mean, if you're talking about obese princesses, don't fairy tales set unrealistic standards of beauty? Don't films do that? Doesn't the fashion industry do that? Don't the slimming pills and the diet ads do that? Don't the beauty products do that? I mean, everything is like that. It's just not the fairy tales. I'm not going to put the responsibility of setting, the responsibility of, setting beauty standards. Yes, it is there, but they are very unrealistic. They have eyes that are this big, they have eyelashes that are this long. I mean, at least this long, yes. Tiny waists, big dresses. They have impractical. It's impractical to be a Disney princess or a Barbie. I've heard of women who go through surgery just to look like a Barbie, and they actually do that but then they have to go through surgeries. It's not actually possible to look like them. But then again, it's not just fairy tales who are responsible for that. The whole industry, the whole shebang is there to tell women how they should look and what they should look like and how to be more desirable. Desirable for who? For the male gaze. That's not important. I hope that answers the question. Yes, I totally agree with that. This doctor who said, I think it's women who are trying to make women empowerment, and studies men should step forward to make women realize that they too hold equal responsibility. Yes, that's it. That's pretty much, I quite agree with it, because male privilege is something that is holding women back, because men are reluctant to give up their privilege in every setting, in domestic, legal, social, professional, all kinds of settings. So when men, since male privilege, it's a constant in every society globally. It's not just us. It's not just you. It's not just, another country. It's every country, in every society, male privilege is a constant. And women's rights is considered to be a variable. A woman can have rights if the man allows, and she can't have rights if the man doesn't allow. And then there's the family, then there's the social norms again, there are the values, the taboos, the traditions, the culture, so many things. When you want to tell a woman that she can't do something, then, there's so many excuses, because it's just like a woman bears the burden of the whole society, the whole shebang on her own shoulders. I truly agree with that male privilege, it needs to be addressed, and it's not something that women can address. It's something that men can do. It's something that men need to give up. They need to make space for women. That's true. I agree. Thank you.
Ma'am, we have time for one final question.
Yes, please. It's from Sridhar Jesuraj. What will you suggest to the budding authors of fairy tales? Retell them. Retell them. If you want to write a new fairy tale, then give the woman some agency. I've already given you some tips on how to create a constructive narrative, and what things to avoid, and what things you can, use to build up a constructive narrative, build up a constructive characterology for a woman. And don't give the princess, go ahead and write fairy tales, but don't give her the princess personality syndrome. I've already discussed that with you. Just don't do that. I think that should be good. And good luck writing fairy tales.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was incredibly enlightening. I need not say myself. The comments say so from all the participants, the attendees. It was an enlightening session. It was entertaining. It was so candid, and many more marvelous lecture given by you. By some of the comments which we have received during the session.
Well, I'm very glad to be useful, Dr. Walter, Mythili, and Madam Rima. I'm very, very glad that I have been useful to your students. And I hope that I didn't crush any romantic dreams of anyone, because we have been having very romantic dreams related to fairy tales. Romance is good, it's fine, but realism is better, I think.
Yes. Rama ma'am, your kind comments, ma'am.
Walter?
Ma'am, go ahead, ma'am. Go ahead, ma'am.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay. So I think at the outset, while all of us thought that author Sana Munir is going to take us down memory lane to the fairy tales and
Dr. Walter?
Yes, I think.
are you able to hear me now?
Yeah, now
Yes,
I can hear
there
you.
was
Yes.
yes, ma'am.
So
Please.
we were little
I think there are some connectivity issues, ma'am.
Yeah, some static. I think there's some internet connectivity issue.
Anyway, I would like to, before it goes out again, I wanted to thank you a lot, and I wanted to say that the research scholars, you have actually, sown some food for thought for them, and I'm sure many of them can take this up as their research topic itself. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I heard.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Very kind of you.
Yeah, thank you.
Shall we move to the
Yes.
to the formal vote of thanks, ma'am?
Yes, Walter.
Yes.
I kindly request Ms. Asha Jenefer, Assistant Professor, Department of English and Other Foreign Languages, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, Asha, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Good evening to all. We have come to the end of the session, of course. It's a well-spent day. I take a few minutes to thank everyone who has helped to make this event a great and a grand success. First and foremost, I thank God Almighty for showering His grace on us and brightening our day and lives. On behalf of the Management Department of English and Other Foreign Languages and the management, I express my gratitude to our guest speaker, Sana Munir, for her compelling lecture on women's studies. It is indeed a pleasure to listen to you, ma'am. I would like to thank the management for offering space and support to all our academic activities. My profound thanks goes to our professor and head, Dr. Rama, for her constant guidance and motivation. I thank Dr. Walter, Assistant Professor of French, for his technical support. I thank my colleague, Mrs. Casey Mythili, for her exceptional support and dedication for the successful completion of this event. Before I end, I would thank all our participants and their cooperation and patience. Hope you have enjoyed this lecture as much as I did. Thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay. So Walter,
thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed a lot. I hope the students have benefited. I'm going to be reading the comments and questions, and if I can answer them in typing, I will do that.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
With that,
Thanks a lot. See you. Take care, all of you. Mythili, thank you for connecting.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye. Take care. Can I sign out?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. You can leave the studio.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Okay,
bye,
Walter.
ma'am. You can leave, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, then bye, sir. I'll also
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So how did you enjoy? Did you enjoy the lecture, the talk? How was that?
Yes. It was wonderful. It was amazing. So candid and it was very honest, down to earth presentation of all the the stereotypical representations of gender in fairy tales and in other fiction as well. And in society as well, so many misrepresentations or negatively
Yes, exactly.
stereotyped representations which have been spoken about and discussed, and how the challenge can be faced, and everything was discussed so very beautifully by Miss Sana. Thank you so much, ma'am, for organizing such a
Thank
wonderful
you so much,
webinar.
sir. Thank you so much for your support. And of course, I do
Welcome,
understand
ma'am.
the conditioning of the society and the parents, how that puts down the
Yes,
women. All is being discussed so very beautifully. And we'll have to break those shackles, and we should try to come out of those comfort zones. But anyways,
yes,
it takes a long
definitely.
time, as Pam mentioned. It actually depends on the individual. So we'll have to break those shackles and come out.
Exactly, exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
And
I'm
that
so
comes
happy
in
to
fact
have
an
been
eye
part of
opener.
this, ma'am. Thank you for this wonderful workshop webinar.
Thank you so much, sir.
I hope
I
that I think that the feedback has been posted, and now some of the questions which were not answered can also be put up to the resource person, so she can get back
okay.
from the.
I shall share the mail ID. I shall WhatsApp you.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you
Shall we
so much.
leave this today? Okay,
Yes,
shall I end the broadcast?
yes, sure, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Bye, ma'am.
Bye, sir.